Hello po.
Morning po. Jeng po. Alternate po ni Teacher Aisel.
Ay, okay po. Nakuha niyo po yung yung link ng slides namin?
Hindi.
Good morning, ma'am. Balot. Narinig ba ako? Ka. Hindi ko kasi sure kung okay itong napulot ko headphone. Naka-mute ka, Malo.
Nagpapapasok na ba?
Wala.
I-plug na ba? Ay, ano na ba natin to? Lalagay na natin. Mag-share screen na o hindi pa?
Ma'am, nakain na po si Ma'am Aisel.
Ma'am Jeng?
Ma'am.
Good morning, everyone, and happy International Museum Day. Welcome to the seminar on museum practices with this year's theme, Building Resilience Towards NMP's Collections and Heritage Management, Exhibition, Curation, Preservation, and Digitization. I am Annie Mabag from the Museum Services Division, Education and Training Services section, and I will be your host moderator for the entire activity this morning. The National Museum of the Philippines, as the government institution, is mandated to be of service to the Filipino people by safeguarding, disseminating, and promoting the Filipino cultural and natural heritage. One of the core functions of the NMP is to provide educational services through its various educational programs and activities for the public to understand and appreciate museum work, its nature, challenges, limitations, and advantages. The Seminar on Museum Practices is a regular program of the NMP that was conceptualized to uphold transparency on the museum's various programs and efforts in achieving its goals. It intends to create venue for curators, researchers, conservators, and other museum workers to report to the public the recent and ongoing programs and project participation to various and local international trainings and conferences in various fields of museum work. These include research, conservation, exhibition, museum management, and public programs. As we celebrate the 2002 National Heritage Month, pursuant to Presidential Proclamation number 439, Series 2003, with the theme, Pamanang Lokal, Binhi ng Kulturang Pilipino, and International Museum Day with the theme, The Power of Museums. The NMP is once again conducting this seminar museum practices. This is a series of lectures that will feature our NMP staff from the central and regional museums who physically or virtually attended and participated in various international training and conferences. To start with, let us hear an opening remarks from the Chief Administrative Officer of the Museum Services Division, Ms. Ann Rosette G. Crelensia. We would like to apologize. I think our Chief Administrative Officer is having technical difficulty. Balikan po natin siya later. So, moving on, we will proceed to our house rules first. So, we would like to advise our participants to please mute your microphone while the session is ongoing. So towards the ends of the activity, an open forum will be facilitated for our participants in Zoom and on-site participants as well as in our FB Live. So should you have any questions or comments, you may send them through Zoom questions and answer or the Q&A feature in your screen. Moderators will also organize and ask the question comments during the open forum. For on-site participants, you may raise your hands and kindly come forward and use the microphone provided when called by the host. So the certificate of attendance will be issued upon request and completion of the post-activity evaluation form. So we would like also to acknowledge the presence of our online and on-site participants in Zoom and FB Live. We have here educators, college students from the different schools and universities, cultural workers. We also have researchers, tourism officers, and we're also joined by some of our colleagues from the NMP central and regional offices. So allow me to introduce our speakers for this morning. So today we'll be having 3 speakers. So at this point, allow me to introduce our first 2 speakers. The 2 of them, along with other 18 international professionals, join in the 3-week All Asia training course at the Lao National Museum in Vientiane, Laos, on October 2 to 23, 2019. The Call Asia training enforced the participants' knowledge in designing effective museum exhibitions that engage the interest of the audience, not only on individual objects or exhibition design, but more on theme or subject as a whole. One of them is Ms. NMP Beso, the head of the National Museum Western Visayas Regional Museum since 2018. In her capacity as museum supervisor and manager, she takes on several responsibilities such as direction setting, long-term planning of museum programs and activities, the supervision of personnel in the performance of the respective functions, especially educational and public programs, collection care, and facilities management. Prior to joining the NMP, she was an information officer of the province of Iloilo for 4 years and the national coordinator for advocacy research and communications program of National Secretariat for Social Action, Caritas Filipinas. Along with her is Ms. Maria Lourdes Malot Ingel, has a background in anthropology, and her experience as a researcher and development worker in local, international NGO and government spearheaded projects with agricultural crafts communities over a span of 3 decades. She now serves as an administrative officer at the National Museum Ilocos Regional Museum Complex, where she is also a member of the collections management team. She is occasionally given opportunities to participate in NMP research and publication projects. Without further ado, to present us the topic, planning new exhibitions, conservation, communication, community, our first 2 speakers, Ms. NMP Beso and Ms. Malot Ingel.
Hi everyone, magandang umaga. Mag-share screen lang ako. Visible na ba yung screen ko? Hello? Naririnig ba ako?
Visible, honey.
Alright. Nakikita naman ako?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, magandang umaga po sa lahat. And sa mga colleagues natin from the National Museum, sa Central Office, and sa regional area and site museums, and lalo na sa mga guests natin from other institutions, sa schools, sa government agencies, and baka may mga private or community museums na nandito. And sa mga individuals who just want to know about museum work, Happy International Museum Day po sa ating lahat. So we were asked to present the topic, planning new exhibitions, conservation, communication, community. It's quite broad, as you can see. So in 2019, Malot and I attended the Call Asia training in Vientiane, and this presentation is actually an abbreviated version of that training. So please bear with us. It's quite challenging, I think, because we will attempt to condense a nearly month-long training into a 40-minute presentation. And we hope na we could give the justice to this topic. And anyway, we'll try to be concise. And I think naman this workshop is really meant to just give anyone na bago sa museum work with idea of how museums care for their collections and how they utilize them in engaging the public. And if you feel that you need a more in-depth training, then there are opportunities. And one of which I will discuss in a short while. So just a brief overview. Wala po akong slides na maipapakita for this, but bigyan lang namin kayo ng idea ng setup ng National Museum. So we have actually 4 flagship museums in Manila. The National Museum of Fine Arts, the National Museum of Anthropology, the National Museum of Natural History, and the Planetarium. And aside from that, we also have 19 regional area and site museums spread all over the country. So I am from the National Museum Western Visayas, and Malot is from the National Museum Ilocos region. If you want to know more about the other branches, you may visit our website at www.nationalmuseum.org.ph. Okay, so as a premier state museum, the NMP partners with institutions, both locally and abroad. And one of our partners is ICROM. So ICROM is actually an abbreviation of an Italian organization. In English, it means International Center for the Study of the Preservation and Restoration of Cultural Properties. So currently, they are present in 138 member states, with Tajikistan being the newest member. So it's an intergovernmental organization, meaning it works with governments to promote the conservation of all forms of cultural heritage in all regions of the world. And you're seeing the blue shaded area, that's their presence worldwide. So I'm sure na yung mga taga-NMP are already very familiar with ICROM since one of our closest partners na ito, and marami sa atin ay NMP ay alumni ng ICROM, ng Call Asia program. So they give capacity building trainings to member states, but sometimes they also extend trainings to non-member states. If they feel na this state will benefit from the training, or they're targeting that state to be a member of ICROM. So, ayan, for instance, in 2019, there were 4 non-member countries who were able to attend the Call Asia program for free. So, if you're curious about them, you can visit them in their website, www.icrom.org. Okay, so again, their mandate is to promote the conservation of culture worldwide. Of course, it includes movable and immovable and tangible and intangible heritage. So their headquarters, if you're curious, is in Rome, but they have a regional office in Sharjah, sa UAE. They have many programs like on disaster management, World Heritage Leadership Program, kung tama yung basta World Heritage something, and Youth Empowerment in Africa. So, however, their running program is, I think, yung Call Asia or Collections Asia. So our curriculum in 2019 familiarized us with the whole exhibition process and provided better appreciation for the interdisciplinary collaboration. Yung framework nila usually follows a very interactive approach and very heavy yung emphasis on hands-on exercises. And so they view this approach as, I think, the best way to develop critical thinking and decision-making, scientific literacy and communication, problem solving, etc. So if you are a heritage worker and would like a more in-depth training on museum work or heritage conservation, then you can perhaps look out for many training programs that they are offering. So you will, of course, need to undergo the usual application process. So may screening sila. But if you pass, all of your training expenses will be shouldered by the institution, and I'm sure na you will have a very enriching experience with them. So, yun, idea lang kung ano yung nangyari sa Call Asia program. Ito yung breakdown ng participants from Southeast Asia, South Asia, East Asia, Central Asia, and Africa. And then yung course team, very varied yung museum experience nila and expertise. Most of them are from UK, Germany, Italy, and also UAE. Tapos meron din sa Laos, yung local host, and Malaysia and Australia. All right, so that's it for our brief orientation sa ICROM and the Call Asia program. And the reason why we are also presenting this to you is we want to popularize it kasi that's what Call Asia also wants the alumni to do. So anyway, now we move on to today's presentation, and our talk will follow this outline. Yung discussion on the institutional mandate, followed by a quick run-through of the usual process involved in planning an exhibition. And then Malot will give a more in-depth background of what happens or how an exhibition is conceptualized. So of course, through research and organizing the narrative of the exhibition. Then of course, we have conservation, because conservation is obviously a very important part of museum work. And we will first tackle the preventive conservation, which is the easiest form, I would say, because nearly everyone with basic training can do this. But of course, you cannot do proper conservation without understanding the material properties of your objects or your collections. Also, when we talk about conservation, it means familiarizing ourselves about the agents of deterioration. And after that, we will talk about the loan process. Kasi yung paglo-loan, di ba, very common naman siya. It's either you borrow certain collections from other museums or community or collectors, or you are the one lending your own collections. And then we will discuss the transport of these objects, how they should be packed or unpacked for the exhibition. Then we will also discuss the public programs. Actually, hindi ko naman siya i-discuss entirely. I will just show some photos of some of our activities or programs just to give you an idea of how corollary activities are implemented, or what are the corollary programs being implemented at NMP. So, and then meron tayong communication. We will discuss communication, more specifically promotion of exhibition through social media. And lastly, but most importantly or urgently, disaster management. Okay, so magsimula na tayo ngayon sa institutional mandate. We want to stage an exhibition. Of course, you don't just do any exhibition that comes to your mind, diba? Or any exhibition that captures your fancy or bigla kang naging interesado. You always stick to your institution's mandate. So this first one is actually very basic. We don't need to tell you this, but it's just there as a reminder or a reiteration of the most crucial element of the exhibition process. So ano ba what's the museum's reason for being? Are you a community museum, kunyari, na nabuo or tinayo para i-promote yung life and works ng isang local hero? Siyempre, pagka ganun, yung exhibition mo will have to revolve around that hero. Or ano ka ba, children's museum ka ba, a science museum, so on. So for us, a National Museum, this is what guides our programs and activities. So NMP believes that the Filipino nation is held together by our cultural identity, heritage, and natural patrimony. Hence, we work here. Everything that we do is anchored on what we think will further strengthen this bond. So we focus on collecting, preserving, interpreting, exhibiting the cultural and natural heritage of the country. So of course, we acquire material objects, yes, but we also document the intangible heritage para naman ma-preserve natin for posterity. We continuously study and come up with relevant interpretations and narratives to communicate their diversity and relevance or importance to the Filipino people. So we always go back to our reason for existing. So, having this firm grasp of who you are as an institution, now we can conceptualize the exhibition. So I will just very briefly run through the different phases of the exhibition process. Si Malot will give a more detailed talk on this, but just to give you, those of you who are completely new to exhibition, just to give you an outline of the activities involved. So of course, hindi naman ito chronological. We realized this nung nasa Call Asia workshop kami kasi every museum has its own way of doing things. But eto sa atin, you need to have an objective, what you want to achieve sa exhibition mo, ano ba yung gusto mong mangyari. Of course, yung theme, tungkol saan yung exhibition mo. You also form a team who will compose your exhibition. Of course, yung may exhibition lead ka talaga, or in other museums, ito yung curator. Then you have, or lead curator, then you have researchers with you, and yun, exhibition designer, information officer, or people in charge sa education activities. Tapos yun nga, yung timeline, ano yung timetable nyo from conceptualization to launching, magkano yung budget, ano yung available collections na pwedeng isama doon sa exhibition. Ayan yung collections inventory. Ano pa yung mga kulang na information, so you can do further research para magawan mo ng narrative. And with that, pwede ka nang bumuo ng caption. And then design siguro, or vice versa. Then of course, yung installation and launching ng exhibition. And again, as I said, hindi naman ito chronological. Some museums do collection inventory first before anything else. What's important is nandyan yung elements na yan. So, yun. Tanong, at what point, saan ba dito pumapasok yung consultation with your stakeholders? So, saan ba? Saan ba sa objective, sa theme, sa gitna sa research, sa installation? So, ideally, dapat pumapasok siya sa lahat ng phases or most of the phases. Ayan, ito yung mga ano niya, dapat na kung saan tayo nagko-consult sa ating community. So they should feel that they are part of the whole project. Kasi of course, they know themselves, di ba? Better than anyone. So dapat may say sila on how their culture will be portrayed. So, ayan. Yan. So, dapat hanggang sa launching. And dito din, nami-minimize din natin yung mga conflicting interests or nane-negotiate natin kung may mga conflicting interests sa isang community or dun kasama sa stakeholders. So, dito natin pinag-uusapan. So, anyway, yan yung, sabi ko nga kanina, very brief overview or very parang bird's eye view lang of the whole exhibition process. So I will turn this over to Malot para mas ma-discuss niya in detail sa inyo yung exhibition.
So, thank you, Honey. Okay. Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. So babalikan lang po natin yung proseso na inilista kanina, nakalista doon sa previous slide, no. So unang-una, mag-agree muna tayo kung ano ba yung exhibition, no. Ito ba ay simpleng display lang ng mga magagandang bagay o kaya ng mga lumang bagay? Usually kasi meron pa ring mga perception na ganon, na yun ang isang museum ay para lang doon sa parang displayan lang ng mga collections. Pero ang totoo, ang isang exhibition ay pagkukwento o pagbibigay ng story through objects. So it's a means of disseminating information or narrative based on a chosen theme or subject through a display of objects for educational and entertainment purposes. So dalawa po, no? It has to sa ganang atin sa National Museum, it has to be educational pagdating doon sa ating natural and cultural heritage at saka yung ating fine arts, and then it has also to be entertaining. Next slide please. Okay, doon po sa pagpaplano natin, no, ng exhibition, pag gumawa tayong exhibition, simple ba na okay para sa lahat ba? Maganda rin po na para sa lahat. Actually, yun yung sinasabi ng iba, no, na maganda na it caters to all kinds of audiences. Pero may kahirapan po yun. Actually, merong advantage pagka you have a target audience. So, are you targeting, for example, like students, college students, or high school students, or maybe you're targeting senior citizens or scientists? the future scientists, families, kailangan ma-identify po natin yon kasi importante yon dahil kailangan nating malaman kung ano yung interest nila pagdating sa theme, doon sa content, and then we will also be able to know their needs. Yung halimbawa, what language are we going to use? For example, if we're talking about engaging high school students, hindi natin i-expect na yung technical language ay gagamitin nila, di ba? And we will also be able to identify the facilities and services needed by the visitors kung alam natin yung target audience natin. So this information, of course, so we have to gather through visitor studies. And I think in all National Museum of the Philippines branches at the central and regional area and site museums, we have survey forms where we can have an idea of this information. And of course, we through those surveys, actually we also learn kung ano ba yung pinakamarami na bumubuo sa ating audiences. For instance po, dito sa vegan, no, dito sa NMP Ilocos ay actually karamihan dito ay mga kabataan yung pumupunta, at nung bago yung pandemic, for example, talagang busloads of students yung hino-host natin sa ating museum. So in this, when we plan the exhibition, and of course we engage our communities, katulad ng sinasabi ni Hani, na our stakeholders, tingnan natin we should always be conscious about who is included and who is excluded, kasi hindi po maiiwasan minsan yon, and we have to, kumbaga, it's a continuous reflection on our part of museum as museum workers para alamin ang mga bagay nito. Next slide, please. Ayan. Ito po ay doon sa, syempre, pagkagagawa tayo ng exhibition, usually dahil museum tayo, maraming nagdo-donate minsan o nagpapamanage ng mga collections sa atin. So marami, no, ang holdings ng National Museum sa libu-libong collections sa natural heritage, sa cultural heritage natin, no, sa fine arts, libu-libo yan. Ang question doon ay, lahat ba ng collection, meron ding nagpapahiram. Halimbawa dito sa vegan, for example, yung Burgos House na loaned sa atin since 1989, loaned sa National Museum of the Philippines since 1989. They actually have a lot of collections there. But the problem is that, do we really have stories about these collections? If we look into the catalog, kulang pala, maraming collection, pero napaka-scarce, napaka-konti ng information na nakalagay doon sa catalog, no? Doon sa inventory ng mga objects. So, what are we going to do pagka ganito? Lalo na actually, kahit may information, we have to do research. We have to do further research, and more so, we have to do more research pagka kukonti yung ating information na available. But anyway, here, kung paano natin tingnan ng isang object, sabi nga natin kanina, no, hindi pwede na maganda lang yung object o luma lang siya. Meron tayong kailangan nating i-document. Unang-una yung object tingnan natin, no? Paano ba natin i-document? Usually, lalo na meron tayong mga scientific illustrations, may photography tayo in order to document a certain object, no? Itong pagdo-document na to, we were given an exercise, no? And it's for us, for all of us. It's not just for museum workers. When we look at a story, at an object, meron yang kwento, but the way we look at it depends on from where we're looking. So halimbawa, pagka nandun ka sa kaliwa, iba yung makikita mo na facet ng isang object, at iba rin pagka nandun ka sa kabila. So simple lang, merong different points of view because of our own backgrounds, of our own fields, no, of our, kumbaga, social positions, our positions in time and space. So meron ba tayong may tama ba o mali dito? Actually wala, no? kaya kailangan natin na maging open at saka kailangan natin i-celebrate ang iba't ibang points of view. So we celebrate different points of view. What is important, of course, is that as lalo na sa National Museum of the Philippines, we have to be scientific, no? So we have to be clear about whose voices, whose perspectives are being shown, for example, in exhibitions. So if you record that, you have to be clear about from where it's coming. Next slide, please. Ayan. So yun yung isang resulta, no, sa isang doon sa participants na nandun sa training, iba't ibang tao may iba't ibang drawing doon sa nakita nila precisely because nanggagaling sila sa iba't ibang lugar or perspective. Next slide, please. Yeah. So doon sa pagbubuo ng story, ulit, no, even for example you find two objects na parehong-pareho naman doon sa pagtingin mo, i-document mo, gagawa ka ng research sa kanya. Pagka pareho siya, hindi ibig sabihin na pareho yung kwento niya. Even the physical, yung physical characteristics ng objects, for all you know, if you make a condition assessment, for example, of these two seemingly similar objects, there may be differences. So that's what we were made to do. Like ano yung difference, yung hawak ko na dalawang boxes doon, meron pala, no, merong pagkakaiba, and we have to be very keen about documenting those differences. Also for the purposes of yung pagka nag-inventory kasi, may perception din kasi yung iba na pagka nawala yung isang object, halimbawa, isang bottle, palitan na lang natin yan ng kapareho. Hindi po pwedeng ganun yon, no? So, kailangan natin na yung isang bagay doon sa museum, parang isang tao yan na merong kanyang sariling pangalan. So, it may be the same, but they are different, and we have to be conscious about that. And also when we document and when we record our stories, we have to be very clear about the language that we use, about the standards that we use in documenting. Because hindi pwede na yung ako, halimbawa na nagre-record, ako lang yung makakaintindi later on. Because these documents, for example, condition reports are going to be read by other people, hindi lang po for personal consumption. So it has to be understood by other people pagka nabasa nila. Next slide, please. Yan po. So, dito yung again, no, tuloy-tuloy yung doon sa pag-alam natin. Actually, mahabang proseso ang balita ko. Inaabot tayo ng 2 taon sa pagre-research minsan, paghahanda para mag-stage ng isang exhibition. At actually, yung 2 taon po ay maliit na yon. Kung gusto mong magbigay ng talagang makatotohanang kwento. But ang importante is paulit-ulit, documentation and research. And even actually when you already installed the exhibition, you continue doing research on the objects and on the whole exhibition narrative. So you do research and you have to know the object's cultural and social life. Hiniliran po namin ito yung kay Arjun at Panduray at saka si Igor Kapitov, yung cultural life of things at saka social life of things, no. So merong ang sinasabi to, ano yung social life, no? Ang mga bagay-bagay po ay hindi lang isang commodity, isang produkto. Hindi lang siya nandyan na parang nag-exist siya na binibili mo lang. Kundi meron siyang kwento. Unang-una, tatanungin mo siya, ano ba? What is it made of? Ano ba yung saan siya ginawa, kaya bakit siya ginawa. So you have to know their functions at saka yung layers of social lives niya. Kasi halimbawa, itong panyo na nakikita natin dito sa picture, maring ito sa souvenir item for the royal wedding of Prince Charles and Princess Diana. No, but afterwards, baka naging pamunas siya o kaya kung ano man yung naging gamit niya. So aware tayo that even one object that was originally intended for one purpose could have been used for many different purposes in different points at different points in time and in different geographic situations po. So next please. Okay. So, of course, when we build a story, we have to undertake a scientific research, hindi yung research na kung ano-ano lang, no? It has to be scientific. So, meron tayong proseso at alam natin lahat yon na pagka systematic yung ating gagawin, it has to undergo a process yung rigorous na proseso, no? So we identify the research topic, we formulate questions, and then we dahil nga doon sa social life of things, cultural life of things, we treat objects as if they were people, and we ask them as if they were persons, no, with lives. So that's how we formulate the questions. And of course, when it's a systematic research, it has to be justified, specific, measurable, clear, tangible, and feasible. So yun yung mga ilang questions, for example, dito sa drum na ito na nandito nasa picture, no? Pwede nating tanong, what are you made of? How were you made? How were you made? Where were you made? What were your functions? How were you cared for? Kasi yung how were you cared for, it's very important then to know, because that's how you will be able to conserve a certain object. And then where were you found, and how and why were you discarded? These are very interesting to know. Next slide, please. So yun, still with documentation and research, we also have, especially when we already have preliminary information, or we're faced, for example, with what's in the catalog, let's look at what is presented, what is preserved, and what is represented. Kasi baka mamaya niyan, yung presented pala kulang. No, meron palang bahagi na hindi nakasama for one reason or another, no? And then what is preserved, sometimes it's also like a subjective, no? Halimbawa, yung nag-collect sa kanya ay hindi na lang isama yung isang parte, bakit kaya hindi sinama? So we have to be conscious of all of this. And then how they are represented, no? For example, in the captions, in the labels, how are these objects represented? Next slide, please. Ayan. So when you already have a story, for example, how do you now support the story? And this is through objects nga. So maari, katulad nga ng sinabi natin kanina, na maaring nandyan na yung objects doon sa museum, no? Pero merong mga pagkakataon kasi na kulang yung objects natin, and we have to tell the story with more objects. So we have to look for these objects. But anyway, it has to be a selection of objects na very careful selection, hindi yung magkakapareho, hindi parang nagtambak ka ng pare-parehong bagay sa isang exhibition. No? Hindi po ganun yung exhibition. May mga ganun ang perception, pero hindi po yun. Maaring, kasi nagbago naman na tayo ng pagtingin tungkol sa museums, no? So it couldn't be that na parang tambak lang siya, parang bodega. Although meron tayong storage talaga, but hindi simple dapat na parang nagtambak ka lang, kundi you have to carefully select the object for you to be able to effectively tell the story, the narrative. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Hello po.
Malot next na sa akin, hindi ba nag-ano?
Okay, ngayon lang. Okay. So, doon sa ating collections, no, nandyan na yung ating collections for the exhibition, no. Actually po, pag trained tayo dapat na pagka gumawa tayo na exhibition, the conservation aspect, the conservation issues should always be there. Hindi po pwedeng mawala. Kasi bakit po natin i-conserve? Bakit importante po ito, no? Kasi unang-una po, bilang National Museum of the Philippines, meron po tayong mandato at merong responsibility to take care of the national heritage collections. So, ang mga bagay-bagay naman po ay nasisira, pero ang objective po natin at ang ating responsibilidad ay pahabain ang buhay ng mga objects na to sa kung gaano man kahaba na itatagal. So it's hindi pwede na parang second priority lang yung conservation ng ating objects. It has to be first priority. Hindi pwede na hindi mo ipagsasaalang-alang. And if you conserve, for example, okay, if you undertake this preventive conservation, you have to know the material properties of objects para alam mo kung paano ba sila, kung ano ba yung vulnerability nila. So kasi meron tayong agents of deterioration na nakakapagpabilis doon sa pagkasira ng mga bagay-bagay at kailangan nating i-mitigate ang mga ito. So we have to understand the environments and the properties of our collections, the environments that they're in, For example, in our galleries, ano ba yung environmental conditions? So we have to, so we can take an effective risk management. Next slide, please. Ayan. So dito po sa yung material properties ng ating objects, merong sinasabi na organic at saka inorganic, no? Minsan nakakalito po ito kasi pagka ang perspective natin ang gagaling doon sa environmental na kung ano ba yung organic food, mga ganun, no? Organic na clothing, medyo magkaiba po pagka ang pinag-uusapan natin ay objects, no? Ang tinitingnan po natin ay yung kanilang origin at saka yung composition. So ang organic materials, yun po yung ang kanilang materials ay nanggagaling sa living organisms, tapos meron din yung carbon containing compounds, no? Maaring ang organic materials ay natural or synthetic, at maaring they can be made of one or more substances po. Ang inorganic material, syempre yung hindi classified under the organic. And then meron din po tayo ng objects that with mixed organic and mixed organic and inorganic materials po dapat yun. Next slide please. So ano ba yung tungkol doon sa material properties, no? Ang examples natin sa organic materials are plant fibers, so yung cotton, hemp, pineapple for example, which is of course yung material natin for our clothing, no? Silk, for example, wood, kasama na yung bamboo dyan, plant materials, animal fur, plant dye stuff, and even the synthetic dyes, plastics, no? Yung polyester, yung polyethylene foam, for example, na ginagamit natin dun sa pagpapak, even the plastics, the bubble wraps, these are organic material. These are made of organic material, paper and leather and so on. Next slide, please. And of course, sa inorganic naman, ano yung sinasabi nating inorganic? Ito yung pwedeng yung stone, metals, glass, ceramics, and mineral pigments. So ano yung pagka ganito yung objects halimbawa, ano yung kanilang vulnerability based doon sa kanilang components? Next slide please. Ayan. So meron pala ito, no? Yung wala lang tayong example na makita kasi dito sa Pilipinas eh. So ito pala yung sa pearls at saka elephant tusks ay mixed organic and inorganic dahil meron din siyang yung water content at saka yung conchiolin at saka yung collagen naman sa elephant tusks. Next slide please. Ayan. So ano yung vulnerability ng organic materials, no? Nabubulok sila, they rot, tapos nagkakaroon ng mga amag, so molds grow on them. So ano yung itong mga materials na to kung saan nabubulok at maaring nagkakaroon ng amag, no? Ito yung fibers, cloth, wood, paper, at iba pang materials, no, na sensitive doon sa growth ng molds. Tapos they are attacked by pests like anay, bukbok, at iba-iba pang klase ng insekto na namamahay sa mga organic materials. So kumakain ng kung ano yung makakain doon sa ating objects, no? And they fade or discolor due to light or UV radiation. They react chemically with moisture and oxygen in the air, no? They burn, no? Nasusunog at saka they crack or deform. So makikita natin later on kung ano kaya yon. Ito yung nasa picture, ang pinapakita dito, yung metal ay actually inorganic. Pero kung makikita nyo, yung meron siyang bamboo beads. Bamboo beads at saka yung string na ginamit para itali, para pagsamasamahin itong bamboo beads na ito, para i-chain ito, ay cotton thread. Kaya iyon mismo ay organic materials. Kaya ang itong pendant, itong necklace na ito, actually ang nagiging problema niya pagka tag-ulan at nasa loob siya ng showcase, inaamag siya. At dahil sa inaamag siya, hindi nga nasisira yung wood, no? Yung bamboo beads, pero yun namang string ang napipigtas. Kaya syempre vulnerable yung at risk yung buong item pagka ganun. So next slide, please. Yan. So dito naman, pagka inorganic materials, maaaring hindi nga sila inaanay, hindi nga sila siguro delikado pagdating sa pagka meron silang dumi o dust, no? Pero meron silang merong ibang paraan ng kanilang pagkasira. Syempre, halimbawa yung ceramics at saka yung glass at saka yung mga stone implements ay maaring mabasag. So kung mabitawan mo, dahil usually may bigat ito, no, at mabitawan, syempre basag agad, katulad na itong clay basin na nakikita dito. And dito sa metal naman, nagra-rust, no, yung mga metal objects, so may corrosion siya. Next slide, please. Yeah. So meron tayong tinatawag na agents of deterioration na nakakapagpabilis ng pagkasira ng ating mga objects, ng ating museum collection. So pag i-rundown natin yung 10 yan, physical force, so yung handling kasama diyan, dissociation, so pagkakahiwalay, incorrect or fluctuating relative humidity. Yan po yung relative humidity, tungkol po yan doon sa moisture in relation to the yung sa temperature ng ating galleries, for example. Incorrect and fluctuating temperature, light and UV rays, pollutants, pests, water, fire, and criminals. Next slide, please. Yan. So isa-isahin natin dahil importante, napaka-importante nito, kaya maano rin natin, ma-appreciate natin kung bakit medyo may mga restrictions tayo o yung mga pinagbabawal doon sa loob ng museum. Halimbawa yung physical force, improper handling, yung vibration, for example, nagkaroon ng earthquake, tapos may mga vandal, mga intentional attacks, yan po ay makakasira sa ating objects. Kaya po binabantayan natin yung ating objects, no, para ma-conserve sila. So next slide, please. Yon. So yung dissociation naman, minsan mga naglulusen yung ating naglulusen yung material, so maaring magkakahiwalay sila, at pagka hindi natin iningatan ito, bigla na lang mawawala. So may mga halimbawa, may mga collections, no, halimbawa mga santo, walang kamay, walang ulo. Yun po yung nangyayari kasi doon, dahil pagka naglusen na at hindi na nahulog, hindi na nahanap, yun na yung nangyayari. Next slide, please.
Po.
Yan. So, dito naman ang nangyayari pagka incorrect at saka fluctuating temperature and relative humidity, medyo delikado po ito doon sa sinasabi nating objects na may hygroscopic materials. So, ibig sabihin, nagre-react po siya, yung sinasabi kanina, nagre-react siya pagka may moisture at saka o kaya pagka nagbabago, yun nagiging dry bigla. Halimbawa po sa loob ng isang museum setting, ang recommended po ay 22 to 25 degrees Celsius. Kaya po nagkakaroon tayo ng air conditioning. Para sana yung malapit dito sa Pilipinas, actually ang hirap ma-achieve yan. Dito sa Vigan, sa aming experience, rarely na maka-maintain kami ng ng 24. Ayaw rin naman namin biglain kasi pagka gabi na, pagka off na yung aircon, biglang nagiging 26 hanggang 31. Mahirap po pagka medyo magkalayo yung temperature doon sa time na merong air conditioning at saka doon sa wala. So yung relative humidity rin dapat 50 to 55%. Kung ang mangyayari po kasi magkakaroon ng next slide please. Next slide. Yun po. Pagka halimbawa sa paintings po, no, pagka gawa po kasi yung paintings, no, merong canvas yan. Tapos yung kanyang meron siyang yung mga paint, yung mga pigments, no. So may hygroscopic material siya na sinasabi natin. So pagka high or above normal yung RH, yung relative humidity, ibig sabihin basa. Yung kanyang canvas maaring mag-swelling o kaya yung parang magbo-bloat, gano'n. So syempre pagka gano'n na parang lalaki yung material, magkakaroon siya ng cracks. Ganun din pagka dry naman siya, pagka below normal yung relative humidity, mag-shrink, no? Tapos magkakaroon din yun ng cracks. Tapos pagka above 65%, yun na nagkakaroon tayo, may molds could grow, no? Pagka above 65%, yun yung nangyayari sa atin. So titingnan natin ano ba yung materials natin na prone doon sa fluctuation at saka incorrect na yung relative humidity at temperature. Next slide please. Yan. So halimbawa, dito po ang ating yung gallery conditions naman po, kaya naman po ang gobyerno ay gumagastos ng equipment natin para doon sa yung ating mga hygrometer, no? At saka yung iba mayroong light dose meter. Kaya gumagastos tayo doon sa equipment na to, hindi palamuti ito sa ating gallery na nagme-measure siya. Kailangang aralin natin yung flow para magkaroon tayo ng pagkakataon para itama o magkaroon tayo ng mitigating measures para hindi lumala yung sitwasyon. Ito po doon sa The Base Revolt Gallery dito sa NM Ilocos. No? So makikita natin yung pagbabago ng relative humidity sa 24-hour period. Ito po sa loob ng isang buwan. Kaya ano kaya ibig sabihin nitong fluctuations na to? No? So ano nalalagay ba sa alanganin yung ating national cultural treasures na The Base Revolt dahil dito. So yun po yung mga kailangan nating aralin at para mabigyan ng lunas kung sakali. Next slide please. So importante din pong aralin ito para syempre hindi lang para sa kasalukuyan kundi doon sa kasunod na panahon, no? Halimbawa, ang sinabi natin kanina, pagka above 65% na yung relative humidity, prone na doon sa amag, no? So ang makikita natin na dito marami yung mga pagkakataon na mas mataas kaysa sa 60 yung ating relative humidity. Pero dito rin dahil rinirecord natin at inaaral natin ano ba yung dahilan kung bakit biglang tumataas, biglang bumabagsak yung relative humidity natin. At least pagka nakita kasi natin yon, mas makakapag bigay lunas tayo or we can try to solve these issues, no? Next slide please. Ayan. So ito pa yung light and UV rays, maraming nagtataka kung bakit nakasara itong mga bintana, itong door na to sa museum, bakit hindi ginagamit, no? Yan po ay plan po ng curatorial team. Kasi pagka plano na exhibition, yung ating mga curators, iniisip po nila yung conservation, hindi parang yung whim lang nila, hindi lang yung whim na isasara o kaya yung mga bintana at saka mga pintuan, no? Meron po yung rason at dahil po yan doon sa conservation. Topmost consideration po yung conservation. So halimbawa dito sa itong showcase na ito doon sa Base Trade Gallery ng National Museum Ilocos, actually meron pong pinto sa kaharap niyan, pero itong pinto na ito ay hindi ginagamit at sinasara lang for emergency na lang po kung gagamitin. Dahil po nakatapat po yan dito nga sa showcase na merong laman na mga textiles at merong mga organic na materials diyan na masisira dahil doon sa pagbabago ng apart from light and UV rays nakaka-apekto din doon sa temperature at saka doon sa relative humidity ng ating showcase. So yung pong light and UV rays unang-una yung ma-appreciate natin agad na it causes the fading of the colors of objects, but apart from that yung discoloration, apart from the discoloration, it also weakens the materials. For example, the cloth here, the textiles here, the fibers would become weaker with this kind of exposure po. So pinaplano po yan, syempre yun doon sa pagle-layout, iniisip yan ng ating curatorial team. So yun po yung mga dapat igalang natin na minsan hindi natin alam. Yun din pong halimbawa sa museum lighting, no? Yung sa museum lighting natin, akala natin okay lang na maliwanag, hindi po pwedeng ganun lang yun. Next slide please. Ayun. So doon sa light intensity, yung pong lux na tinatawag, meron pong recommended for museums at mababa po actually, makikita nyo dito sa slide na 50 to 100 lang dapat. Pero pagka binuksan po natin, halimbawa yung mga bintana at saka mga doors, syempre tumataas po ng mega taas, no, ng 10 times or more yung ating light at nakakasira po yun. Next slide please. Next slide. Yan. So ano pa yung ibang agents of deterioration, pollutants. So halimbawa yung dumi pag hinahayaan natin, pag hindi natin nalilinis na regularly yung ating mga objects, ano yung pwedeng maipon dyan, would be pollutants like dust. But apart from that, may mga nagkakamali, for example, nagagamitan ng adhesive yung ating objects, masisira po yung objects natin dyan dahil syempre yung adhesive na nakadikit doon, magkakaroon yan, madidikit yung dumi diyan sa adhesive na yan. And how are you going to clean the material? Pagka nilinis mo, kinaskas mo yon, edi masisira yung object mo, ma-scratch siya. Pagka lininis mo yung residue or yung dikit diyan sa adhesive na yan. Next slide, please. Ayan, syempre yung mga pest, no? Itong nasa kaliwa ay dumaan na sa bukbok at itong mga libro nandito sa kanan ay inanay dahil napabayaan, hindi nababantayan ng maigi. Yan. So sa next slide please. So conscious po tayo dapat diyan kung ano yung naanay. Syempre pagka pots, hindi naman naanayin yun, pero pagka mga libro at saka mga kahoy, cloth, yan, lahat po yan ay kumbaga takaw-anay. Yan. Tapos yung water, for example, halimbawa sa isang gallery, maglalagay ka ba maglalagay ka ba ng gripo o ng spout halimbawa doon sa loob ng gallery? Isipin po natin kung ano yung risk na mangyayari doon sa loob, no? Pagka nagkaroon ng halimbawa ng earthquake at nag-break yung pipeline o yung kung ano man yung water pipe na yan halimbawa or sewage or whatever, maaring ma-expose yung ating collections sa risk. At ano po yung mangyayari? Siyempre, pagka natubigan yung ating collections, no, hindi pwedeng sabihin natin na lalabhan. Katulad nitong Barong Tagalog ni LPG Quirino dito sa kabilang, biglang nagkaroon ng leak, no, doon galing sa ceiling, no. Hindi po natin pwedeng sabihin na labhan na lang kasi hindi na po pwedeng labhan yung textile na yan dahil napaka-brittle na po, napaka-sensitive na. Next slide, please. Ayun. So doon sa paggagawa po ng exhibition design, we have to think about a lot of things. We have to be holistic in thinking, no? And we have to really respect the curatorial work kasi the design includes including the layout and installation of objects, mounts, cases, pedestals, lighting, and other gallery equipment. These all take into foremost consideration the conservation issues in order for us to mitigate whatever risks there are and to prolong the lives of our objects, our heritage collections. So measures are taken to limit, if not totally remove, sources of deterioration. And this is the reason why certain doors and windows are shut, why lighting is dimmed, why air conditioning and the humidifying equipment are provided, and so on. Next slide, please. Ayan. So, katulad po ng sinabi ko kanina, napaplano po yan. Makikita nyo pagka pumunta kayo dito sa NMP Ilocos na dito sa isa buong south wing na ito at pati doon sa north wing galleries, isang pinto lang po ang ginagamit para mapanatili pong sarado yung ibang doors at saka yung mga windows dito. Pagka nililinis po, isa-isa lang. Although syempre nung nakaraan dahil hindi alam ng ating staff, tayo naman hindi natin alam lahat ng mga ito dahil syempre natututo tayo along the way pagka nagkaroon ng halimbawa yung studies, yung technology na makakapagsabi sa atin kung ano yung mali doon sa ating mga ginagawa. Then we change kumbaga yung ating methods of maintaining our collections. So here, yun na, ngayon pagka nilinis na ang ating mga galleries, isa-isa lang na binubuksan yung ating windows para malinis yung mismong windows. Next slide please, parang last na po yata. Next slide. Okay. Other aspects to be considered in designing an exhibition. So use of space to tell a story or support a narrative. Maybe you are lucky to have, for example, an ancestral house where you have a ground floor, like the Burgos house, no? The ground floor, that's where the Abel Iloco, the traditional textile weaving of Ilocos is on exhibition. So yung Abel Ilioca exhibition under the Burgos House, on the ground floor of the Burgos House has a basis, cultural basis, kasi usually ang weaving ginagawa po doon sa ground floor, hindi doon sa second floor po. So you look at the space that's given to you, and then you try to tell the story using that space. Maybe it's matching, maybe or maybe it's a new space. Then you have to be creative enough in using that space to be able to tell the makatotohanan na story. And then you have to think about the collection flow, how the collections are installed in the gallery, how they're moved, how they're cleaned. You have to take this into consideration. Then open storage, for example, this is something a bit new for us, no? But we have experience. I mean, we have something new about this, na yung ating collections na na stored ay pwede nang maging open for greater public access. Then we have to think about the changes in our audiences, the trends, the technologies that are available, the visitor flow, conditions, for example, during the pandemic, we have to take this into consideration. Then the attention peaks and museum fatigue of our audiences, the service routes that are needed. For example, our PWDs who need to use the wheelchair. We have to think of all these things. And of course, in designing for future use, I mean, we are encouraged actually to think about environmental sustainability, lalo na sa panahon ito with all the climate change issues, and that we have to, kumbaga, sisiguraduhin natin na conserve yung ating collections, but let's see na yung kailangan lang, halimbawa doon sa packaging, matidiskusyon ni Hani, yung sapat lang, and we have to take into consideration all the environmental sustainability along the way. Next na, Hani, please, your turn, I think. Yeah.
Yes, okay. So thank you, Malot, sa pagbibigay sa amin ng mas malalim na konteksto sa exhibition and conservation aspect of our work sa museum. So now we go to the loan process, kasi part pa rin naman siya ng exhibition, especially if you will have to borrow for your own, say, exhibition, or you will lend your own collections for someone else's exhibition. So ito yung sabi natin na at least, okay, wait. At least should be in the loan agreement. Okay, hindi, we found out again na bawat museum may kanya-kanya siyempre siyang forma ng loan agreement, and ulit, depende na yun sa diskarte ng museum. Siguro yung mga institutions na nasa labas ng NM, meron na kayong sariling yung loan agreement or loan forms, pero yung mga nagsisimula pa lang and wondering what should be included there, at the very least, ito po yung mga information na dapat na-reflect doon sa ating loan agreement. So una, yung borrowing institution, yung contact person, yung complete address and yung contact details nila. Kasi syempre, para malaman natin kung sino yung hiram ng collection natin, malaman natin kung saan natin sila hahabulin, if ever. So, ikalawa, hanggang kailan ba yung loan? So, yung date ng loan and yung expected na date of return. So, gaano katagal mawawala sa atin yung collection natin, or gaano katagal tayong manghihiram ng collection ng ibang agency. And then, of course, yung mga conditions or terms ng loan. Okay, sandali lang. Medyo may delay yung aking. So, isa na doon yung, yung conservation or yung maintenance need, di ba sabi kanina ni Malo, doon sa agents, nung dinidiscuss na yung agents of deterioration, dapat alam natin kung how do you care for this particular object. So, kung ipapahiram mo yan, dapat alam mo or alam ng manghihiram kung paano niyang i-maintain or i-conserve yung object na yun. So baka may mga special needs pala yun. In the same way na manghihiram ka ng isang bagay, dapat alam mo din na kung paano mong i-conserve yun. Kasi mamaya maling conservation method yung nalapat mo dun sa object. So kung hindi na disgrasya pa yun. So yun, dapat ma-reflect yun doon sa loan agreement para guided yung manghihiram, or ikaw as a borrower, guided ka. And then yung packing and unpacking or your transport ng object. So, dapat nakalagay doon. If you are the owner, how do you want your objects to be cared for? So, maliban sa conservation work na i-apply, paano ba dapat yung pag-handle nun? So, dapat ba nasa sturdy na material? Dapat madaming mga fillers na hindi siya maaalog? So, dapat nakalagay yun sa loan agreement para kung ano man ang mangyari sa collection mo, pwede mo talaga siyang habulin dahil stated doon. So, parang terms of reference lang to sa mga bidding projects natin or any projects natin. Lahat dapat nakaspecify dito sa loan agreement. So, dapat nakalagay din yung insurance na either sila yung mag-shoulder nito if ever na may mangyaring masama nga doon ulit sa objects or ikaw mag-shoulder ka ng insurance if ikaw yung manghihiram. And then reproductions, for instance, photos, may mga photos ka na pinahiram, pag i-reproduce nila, papayag ka ba? Ano yung asan yung copyright nun? So yan yung mga dapat na nakalagay sa loan agreement. And then yung cost, sino yung mag-a-assume ng cost? And then, ika-apat, kung magkakaroon ba kung ibabalik, kailan ibabalik? So dapat nakalagay na, naka-state na rin yun dun sa period ng loan. Pero kung if ever na willing kang i-extend yung ihiram, hanggang kailan mo lang siya pwedeng ipahiram, hindi na siya pwedeng lumampas doon. And then, yung amendments then to the agreement, if you will be amenable to that. And of course, yung pinaka-importante, yung attachments or yung condition report. Kasi bago mo ipahiram, yung object mo, dapat alam mo yung estado niya para if ever na may magbago, makikita ninyo na yung changes dito sa condition ng object came after the loan. Or ikaw din na borrower, it's also for your protection na may dati nang sira yung object na to, hindi yon nasira during my care. So, yan lang naman kaikli yung ating loan agreement. And then, we will now go to the transport or yung sinasabi kanina ni Malot na packing and unpacking. So, we have ironed out our loan agreements, no? So, paano natin ngayon siya ito-transport? I think yung most of the process involved here are very self-explanatory kasi excuse lang pala yung photos na ginamit ko. Wala kasi ako makuhang photos. So, ginamit ko na lang yung training namin sa collation workshop. So, yung iba dyan, yung box mukhang sira na kasi mga recycled materials yung ginamit namin sa training. Anyway, yung part na to reminds us na dapat siguraduhin mo na hindi masisira yung objects while on transit, right? So, una, yung kailangan mo siguro i-consider yung appropriateness ng material na gagamitin mo. Sturdy box ba yan? Or if plastic, gumawa ba ng test to make sure na hindi pala siya agent of deterioration for the object na it will house. So nag-perform ba ng mga several tests like ODI test. Parang hindi yata namin na-discuss kanina yung ODI but laboratory test siya para malaman. Test siya para malaman if ano yung composition ng object na yun. Ano yung chemical composition niya. So kunyari gumamit ng scotch. Okay lang ba yung object na yun na gamitan ng scotch tape? Or, okay. So, yun yung mga ganong bagay. So, yung nasa left photo naman, makikita ninyo na nilagyan ng description ng objects yung box. So, para madali na lang yan hanapin. So, kung may ipapahiram ka or manghihiram ka, maganda na may reference na para hindi na kailangan bubuksan yung mga naka-wrap na objects. Kasi pag inanwrap mo kasi gusto mo siguraduhin nga nandito nga sa box na to yung hinahanap mo, baka it might just put the object at risk, di ba? Pag gagalawin mo siya or tatanggalin mo yung wrapping niya. Okay, so ayan, makikita ninyo yung bubble wraps and yung fillings sa right side to prevent the objects from bumping against each other. Ayan na yung scotch tape na sinasabi ko kanina. Pero pansin nyo, di ba, hindi naman nila nilapat nga sa object talaga. Then sa right, ginawa siya ng parang cubby, matawag dyan, para mas snug yung fit at hindi kasi mga babasagin eh. So para hindi siya hindi magka-scratch or mabasag ng tuluyan. So, ayun, pumunta naman tayo ngayon sa public program. Bakit kailangan ng public program? Part ba siya ng exhibition? Hindi ba enough na exhibition lang? So, yung public programs ba, are they a must? Siyempre yung sagot, hindi naman sila must, but it will really be helpful to make the message of the exhibition stick. So, hindi naman at saka para maging masaya yung experience ng museum experience ng mga pumupunta, maging fun and unforgettable. Kasi yung mga public programs usually they're very dynamic. Diba sa mga exhibitions kasi minsan wala masyadong feedback from the audience. They view the exhibition and then, you know, if my guide, good yun kasi makakapagtanong sila. But with public programs, may ibang layer of participation and feedback loop na nai-establish with your audience. And then may another special kind of relationship din silang nabubuo sa collections on a more personal level. So sa amin dito, ano ba yung mga klase ng mga public programs sa National Museum? Ito yung nakikita ninyo dyan. Public program yan ng National Museum Western Visayas para sa para sa aming Habol Panay exhibition. So andyan din makikita yung part yan ng Habol Panay na pinapakita nila yung lahat ng process ng weaving. So weaver, mother and son tandem ito sa Miagao. And then binibigyan natin ng hands-on experience yung mga participants para maintindihan nila yung concept ng weft and warp. Pagka diniscuss mo lang kasi, minsan hindi siya bumababa from the head to the heart. So mas magkakaroon sila ng full understanding if may hands-on experience sila. Kaya lang unfortunately, minsan isa lang yung tiral natin, yung hindi lahat ng mga participants nagkaka-opportunity to handle the tiral. So ayan, meron tayong gumagawa tayo sa National Museum ng mini tiral, and perhaps kung mga nasa community museums kayo, you might also consider doing these activities para nga mas maging experiential sa mga audience ninyo. So para naman sa aming Pinyaseda na exhibition, gumawa rin kami ng Pinyaseda weaving. So sa isang corner ng gallery namin, nag-set up kami ng para ma-separate yung thread from the leaf, pineapple leaf. Tapos sa isang section naman, nag-set up din kami ng weaving implement. So doon na nila nakakita kung ano yung ginagawa doon sa thread na nakukuha and paano siya binubuo into fabric. So eto naman yung sa kabilang section, nandito yung weaving embroidery demonstration naman. So para sila mismo matry nila na makapag-embroider doon sa pinya fabric. So kami na yung nagpo-provide ng materials na to. Yung nakikita nyo dyan, yung mga participants natin. So ayan yung usually may mga bata, may mga matatanda, may mga teenagers. So medyo bonding experience din kasi sa family and sa magbabarkada. So eto naman, isang public program or corollary activity na ginawa namin para sa isang school sa Ateneo de Iloilo para, again, human loom yung tawag dito, para maintindihan nila ulit yung concept ng weft and warp. So yan yung nakikita ninyo, yung mga museum staff, tinitest muna, pinapretest yung mga nandyan, yung mga guards namin and utilities. So yung mga activities na to, they don't necessarily cost that much. Actually, wala nga tong masyadong gastos. So ayun lang, thank you to the creativity of the staff, yung ating mga museum guide, yung ating museum researcher, information officer, yung mga admin natin, na talagang nagiging resourceful. But as I was saying, hindi kailangan na maging mahal yung isang public program. Basta maging creative lang tayo on how to make the exhibition more understandable and meaningful for the audience. So eto na yung in-implement na namin, ayan na yung mga kids. So nilabas namin sila para mas may space. Tapos para maintindihan ng mga bata yung concept ng fabric, hindi mo naman sila pwedeng i-discuss sa kanila yung fabric ng yung cotton, ginagawang yung thread na galing sa cotton. So gumawa kami ng parang storyline, parang puppet show for them para mas maintindihan nila sa level nila. So ayan yung nakikita ninyong puppet show na sinasabi ko. So yung ating researcher, siya yung storyteller, and then yung mga museum staff, sila yung nasa likod ng anong tawag siya, ng divider. So and then para naman maintindihan yung kunyari yung stegodon, paano mo i-explain sa kids yung stegodon, yung elephant, look how young they are, diba? So paano nila yan maiintindihan? So ang ginagawa namin, konting lecture, storytelling ulit, ginagawang parang character ng isang story, yung elephant, yung stegodons, and then pinapadraw namin sa kanila. So ayan, for some reason, yung makulay yung rendering ng mga bata sa stegodon. So ayun nga din, di ba? Tayo sa museum, it's our responsibility to nurture the creativity and imagination of these young people. So ayan, binibigyan natin sila ng space for that. So eto yung mga pinaka-recent na activities natin. So para naman maintindihan nila yung fabric, ayan, binibigyan din natin sila ng games para ipasuot sa kanila yung patadyong, and then pinapadrawing sa kanila yung embroidery designs or yung panubok ng Panay Bukidnon. So far lahat ng mga bata na enjoy ito, and ito yung paraan para hindi lang nila maintindihan pero matandaan pa talaga nila. So, ito naman, ito yung orange na isa pa palang actually component ito ng exhibition. Kasi when we say exhibition, yung mga nakikita natin sa galleries actually konting maliit lang na part yan ng ating collection talaga. So some museums, ang atin din yata sa National Museum, meron tayong ginagawang open storage na yung mga visitors natin can visit the storage and our storage room and makita nila kung paano kini-cared for yung mga museum. So sometimes part din sila ng public programs. So ayun, and then after ng ating public program, pupunta tayo sa communication. So di ba na-mention kanina ni Malot yung research, how important it is sa pagbuo ng isang exhibition. And then after your research, how do you translate all this information into something na maiintindihan ng mga tao, ng target audience mo? Since you cannot make your research available naman to everyone, not only will they have difficulty understanding it, hindi rin siguro accessible for them kasi hassle to get copies, di ba? Tapos babasahin pang pagkahaba-haba and very technical. So this is where the magic of your information officer comes in, di ba? It is their job to make the research, kumbaga, palatable for lack of better term, or readable na lang pala. So easy to understand and crunch the data. So they need to pack it in a way na maikli, concise, and very interesting. Usually dapat sa amin, sinasabi namin sa National Museum, maximum ng 300 words, but sobrang haba na nga nun eh. If you can post it at 150 words, the better. Then of course, you have to break down the whole research, di ba? Hindi naman pwedeng isang bagsakan. Kasi pagka ganun, magiging information overload na yon. So, alam niyo yung TikTok, di ba ngayon? Very effective siya kasi maikli and they serve well in the face of, you know, the short attention span of most people. So, ayun, mga ganyan lang kaliliit, very, ayun, readable, understandable, madaling panoorin. Tapos, also, you have to choose catchy titles and most importantly, beautiful photos to accompany your post. Kasi kahit naman gaano kaganda ng text mo and kahit gaano ka-engaging yan, if pangit yung photos, minsan hindi rin siya talaga pinapansin. So that's it for communication. Yan, bilisan na rin lang talaga namin kasi nga para meron pa tayong susunod na topic. And lastly, but most importantly for us ay yung disaster management. So why do we need this? Kasi syempre, Philippines is a disaster-prone area. So, kumbaga, we were really meant to experience disasters by virtue of our geographic location alone. So, syempre, nandun tayo sa boundary ng mga major tectonic plates. Nasa center din tayo ng typhoon belt. So, andyan na sa atin lahat eh, yung baha, landslide, lindol, volcanic eruptions, you name it. So, tayo as museum or heritage institutions, if we're not prepared to deal with this, and sadly, marami talaga sa atin na hindi prepared, hindi tayo disaster resilient, then we lose the material culture na under our care. So di ba yung nangyari sa Brazil, yung National Museum ng Brazil, nung nagkasunog, tupok lahat-lahat. So, I mean, if mangyari yan sa National Museum na libo-libo yung national collections na nasa atin, paano pa, di ba? Parang yung nararamdaman lang din yan ng mga tao sa Bukol nung na pudpod yung mga simbahan nila. Masyado siyang masakit for us to even think about it. So that's why it's very important for us to have a disaster risk reduction plan. So ano yung elements ba nun? Ano yung dapat? How do you go about it? So syempre, una, you have to have a plan. So yung disaster plan. And then once na you have your plan already, which will contain your disaster, yung elements nun, yung kagaya ng disaster response team. So sino ba yung dapat na bumubuo ng disaster response team mo? Syempre dapat may coordinator ka. Ito, syempre dapat okay na marami. But at the very least, you should have at least a coordinator, a retrieval team na, will save as much of the collection as they can. Pero not naman to the expense of their own lives, syempre. Tapos you have your conservators na mag-a-apply ng pangunahing luna, so to say, doon sa mga na-retrieve na collections. And then you have your media team na or information officer siguro, na magko-communicate, syempre mga press releases sa mga yung kailangang ipaalam, yung mga stakeholders, at hindi mo naman ipapaalam syempre lahat, but ito nga yung gagawin ng media team, is-screen mo yung mga information that you should be forwarding to your stakeholders at a timely manner. Tapos yung security, kasi alam naman natin na every disaster, talagang may mga looting na nagaganap. So yung function ng security is to ensure na yung mga na-salvage na collections will stay safe from looting and any other harm. So, and then if you have that disaster response, may disaster plan ka, may response team ka na, dapat regularly simulate it. Hindi ko na nasama dito yung photo namin sa Call Asia, nawalan lang ng oras, pero that's something that we have really to practice regularly as museums. Even if we have plans, even if we have a team composing of the, kung sino yung first responders natin, if we don't simulate regularly, in the face of large-scale disaster, matataranta ka talaga. Ganun yung nangyari sa amin ng simulation. And so dapat, para kumbaga, na-rare tayo kung ano yung mga dapat natin gawin. And then very important, yung coordination natin with different agencies. It has to be there, ma-establish natin yung network. Merong working network, may operational network. So, kanino ka makikipag-touch base? Siyempre sa provincial capital, sa Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction Office, sa police, sa Red Cross. So, kami dito sa Western Visayas, very fortunate na nasa katabi namin yung Red Cross. Tapos sa kabilang building naman namin, nandun yung Bureau of Fire, at saka yung police. Pero yung mga site museums o yung mga community museums na malalayo, dapat talaga meron tayong ma-establish na contact. And then of course, yung directory na dapat naiiwan doon sa ating mga security personnel. Kasi if something happens, hindi man yan fire, hindi man yan anything lang, like sa amin, nababasag yung mga glass panels namin for some reason, siguro dahil sa init, matatawagan agad yung ating museum personnel. So, bakit kasama yung disaster management? Kasi syempre, part pa rin siya ng collection scare. Kasi akibat pa rin siya sa pagpangangalaga natin ng ating mga objects na nasa loob ng museum. So, basically, yung mga nabanggit namin ni Malot, yun yung buong Call Asia course namin ng 2019. Pasensya na if lumampas kami ng isang oras kasi talagang medyo mahirap nga naman din talagang i-crunch. But sana kahit papaano ay medyo naintindihan ninyo yung aming na-share na learnings in that nearly month-long program. So if you want to be part of the Call Asia, you can probably approach yung mga nasa labas po ito. I'm addressing institutions outside of NMP na you can approach anyone from the National Museum. Pwede kayong mag-chat sa mga Facebook page namin. Kasi regularly they forward training links sa amin, and also you can also go and visit their website. So yun lang naman po, on behalf of my museum here in Western Visayas and also Malot in Ilocos Region, maraming salamat. Agyamanak, daghang salamat, madamo gid nga salamat sa inyo tanan.
participants have their own takeaways as well, and surely it will be useful to those who have important collections at home or someone who has just put up their museum, and or to those who plan to conduct their exhibitions as well and more. So, as promised, so once again, to give us her message, please all welcome the Chief Administrative Officer of the Museum Services Division, who is now in Butuan branch.
It's a beautiful day today, and from the National Museum of the Philippines, Eastern Northern Mindanao Regional Museum here in Butuan City, I'd like to greet everyone a pleasant day. I'm sorry for the delay of this message because we're having a bad signal at the moment, but I'd like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to all the participants who joined us today, to our lecturers who willingly share their expertise and skills in today's lined up activities and topics. And also my gratitude to the Museum Services Division, especially the Education Training Services section for organizing today's program. In the past years, we are faced with so many challenges, and guess what? The National Museum PH remained committed to its mandate of providing quality services to the general public, remaining strong in its mission to preserve and conserve its cultural heritage collections, and to make it accessible as much Filipinos and visitors nationwide and worldwide. Today, as you may have noticed, I'm wearing this beautiful set of earrings and necklace inspired by the design of our kababayans, the Mamanwas of Northern Mindanao, and would like to inform you likewise that simultaneously, our colleagues here in Butuan City are organizing or having their webinar at the moment on beads, boats, and bowls of Butuan City. So you might likewise check that out later. You'll be able to access that through our official NMP YouTube account. So without further ado, and not to keep you waiting so much more for our next speaker, I wish to greet everyone a happy International Museums Day and Happy National Heritage Month, everyone. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Ms. Anne Rosette Crelensha, for the message. So, but before we proceed with our last speaker, let us have just a quick 5-minute break. Okay, so see you after 5 minutes po muna. And we are back. Hello once again. To our participants, if you have questions in mind, you may type them. To our Zoom participants, you may type them at the Q&A feature of your Zoom. To our FB participants, you may type them in the comments section. We are going to entertain them during the open forum. So now let us proceed with our last speaker. He is a senior museum researcher of the Maritime and Underwater Cultural Heritage Division. Currently, he has a current research interest includes stone materials and seagoing artilleries from different shipwreck sites in the Philippines. He presented research opportunities to both local and international conferences, and his previous research involvements were on harmful algal bloom or red tides, harmful or invasive marine organism in the ballast water of international vessels, and biofouling organisms, established wharves, and other pier facilities. He obtained his master's degree in marine science from the Marine Science Institute, University of the Philippines, Diliman, and bachelor's degree in biology, major in marine biology from the Visayas State University, previously Leyte State University. So ladies and gentlemen, to discuss the topic challenges and opportunities in conveying underwater cultural heritage during the pandemic, may I give you the floor to Mr. Nero M. Ostero.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mamani, for that very kind introduction. Also, I'd like to thank to the people of Museum Services Division for this opportunity to be part of this program. And to our physical participants who are here today. And of course, our online participants viewing us via Facebook Live, YouTube, and via Zoom. Okay, so my presentation once again, the challenges and the opportunities in conveying underwater and cultural heritage during the pandemic. So I'm sorry, next slide. Oh, sure. Okay, sorry for that. All right, so this slide is just a summary or chronological history of our division. So from the establishments of the Insular Museum of Ethnology, Natural History and Commerce in 1901 to the discovery of the Spanish galleon off the coast of Albay in 1967, moving forward to the establishment of the Maritime and Underwater Cultural Heritage Division as part of the reorganization of the National Museum of the Philippines. So these slides also shows the various shipwrecks discovered and or excavated through various years as part of the National Museum's mandate on the protection and preservation of these cultural materials. So our division, the Maritime and Underwater Cultural Heritage Division, is primarily tasked to conduct archaeological researches on shipwrecks and foreshore, coastal and foreshore archaeological sites, as well as in the assessment, investigation, and protection of World War II shipwrecks. This map only shows our archaeological sites or shipwreck sites across the country. And those other photos only shows a few of our materials or equipment that we have acquired through the years as part of the division's improvement or materials. So through the years of our division, so we have at least 5 national cultural treasures. These include the Butuan boats. These are the wooden remains of the plank-built boats which were found in Butuan City, so hence the name Butuan boats. Also, the Pandanan Shoal blue and white bowl that features 2 Chinese mythical creatures, the Shilin and the Phoenix. Also from Lena Shoal, a blue and white dish featuring central design of a flying elephant that represents a possible religious, a religious creature or representation, probably Tibetan Buddhism. Also, the seal of De Morga, Antonio de Morga, who was the Captain General of the San Diego Galleon, as well as the astrolabe or the navigational instrument found in the San Diego Galleon. Well, this was in 2019. I would just like to highlight this activity because this was more or less our last field work conducted prior to the onset of the pandemic. So this was from October 16 to November 5 in 2019 in Lubang, Oriental Mindoro. So this was about the San Jose Galleon, a Spanish galleon, which is about 60 meters in length, which was stuck on a reef in Luok, in Lubang Island, that sank along with 400 crews and its 12,000 cargoes. So again, I think you would all agree with me that the pandemic has really caused so much havoc and have somehow changed our lives in a massive or major ways. But then again, as mandated by our agency's mandates, we are, well, at the end of the day, we have to produce results. So basically, we need to do something to produce research and or other activities that we need as part of our job. So these are the programs and activities that we have conducted during the pandemic. So again, since during the onset of the pandemic, so most of the people across the country were confined in their homes. So I think the employees of the National Museum also, we are having really difficult times in going to the office. But it's a good opportunity as well. I mean, it's good that the National Museum also had adopted alternative work schedules. So we have skeletal workforce as well as work from home schedules. So during our skeletal workforce schedule, so most of our staff or personnel are doing inventory or cleaning and maintenance of our materials or our collections, some of which we do documentation, photo documentation of our materials. And we're also lucky to have one of our colleagues who is primarily tasked on the maintenance of our data collection using a database, using our database. So also, we also took this opportunity since we were confined in our collection holdings, in our storage. So we're not allowed to do field work. So we do material analysis. So to discover more of the significance of our materials. So these include micro-invasive or less invasive methods. So including optical microscopy, XRF or spectroscopy, FTIR, Raman spectroscopy, and XRD methods. So these are more or less a non-destructive methods in acquiring relevant information about our collection or our materials. Also, as part of the National Museum's Museum from Home program, so our division, these are the National Museum of the Philippines social media. So at least the agency aimed to strengthen our presence, or the presence of National Museum with our communities, especially those that have limited access or no access to our exhibitions or our collections in the museums. So this includes our Facebook official page, Twitter, Instagram, as well as a YouTube channel. So as part of this program, the National Museum also has updated or improved our website. So as part of this, this is where the Maritime and Underwater Cultural Heritage Division, we have featured collections as well as the highlights of our works on in these websites. So you can also check these websites online. So if you want to know more about our collections, you can browse through these featured collections as well. And also part of the program, we have this so-called Maritime Monday. So every Monday, during the onset of the pandemic, we created like poster materials that highlights several collections such as ceramics, also artilleries that gives highlight about the significance of these objects. So this was every Monday, and then now at least since we already, most of the people are not going out, so basically we're doing this at least twice a month, so every other Monday. This program is not just limited to our division, of course. Other divisions such as archaeology division, they're doing their travel Tuesdays. In Wednesdays, I think this wildlife Wednesdays for, I guess, zoology and botany division. I'm not so sure on Thursdays, but on Friday we have the Fossil Friday by the geology and paleontology division. And of course, we also participated in several online lectures, both local and international programs or lectures via Zoom, basically. And then this is to raise public awareness on the protection and conservation of maritime and underwater cultural heritage, and also to campaign against looting and increase public knowledge on the underwater archaeology and promote appreciation of these materials. On September 24th, 2021, we also launched our Much Forum 2021, Significance and Applications of Material Analysis in Maritime Archaeology. So we have invited speakers and experts from selected NMP divisions, including ethnology, fine arts, and geology, to discuss about concepts and significance of different technical analysis that has applications to material culture studies. So that includes X-ray, diffraction or XRD, XRF, FTIR, and optical microscopy. All right, so I think the previous presenter had, if you have followed through their discussions, they have discussed the most complicated process on launching exhibitions. Okay, so it is very complicated that you have to follow through from the start up to the launching of exhibition. Okay, these are just few of the exhibitions that were launched in 2021. So one is the Submerged History, the Marinduque Shipwrecks. So this exhibition showcases the direct material evidence of Marinduque's active participation in local and international maritime trade that helped shape its current vibrant and remarkable culture. So for those in Marinduque, you may visit our regional museum there, so you can view the exhibition. So these are just the behind the scenes activities that we've done. So I think our previous speakers also discussed about the methods, the process of preparing the materials, selecting or sorting the materials to be exhibited. So since most of those materials that were displayed or exhibited in Marinduque came from the central office or the central museum, so we have to pack them safely secured and transport them to Marinduque. So sorted and packed with bubble wraps, and then safely packed in boxes and transported. Also, the other exhibition that we launched in 2021 was the 300 years of maritime trade in the Philippines. This was on September 24. So in line with during the Match Forum 2021. So this exhibition showcases the material evidence recovered from shipwreck sites found in the Philippines, dated from the 13th, 15th, and 16th centuries. So this includes breaker reef, investigator, and so on and so forth. So again, these are just the behind the scenes activities that we've done. So, we did not, we have not done this exhibition without the help of other people. So from EMPSD, from FSD, the janitorial services, we have them through the process of launching this exhibition. These are the pictures of the EMPSD personnel who produces the virtual gallery tour that you can find in YouTube channel of a National Museum for the 300 years of maritime trade in the Philippines. So again, these are the virtual gallery tours available in YouTube. So you can also search them. The submarine history in Marinduque, as well as the 300 years of maritime trade gallery tours or virtual gallery tours. And finally, so as the pandemic somehow eases, so we have less restrictions, we're allowed to travel. So on April 18 to 22, just last month, we were allowed to do fieldworks in San Andres in Isla Verde in Batangas City. So the site or archaeological site is located at the heart of the Verde Island Passage, also known as the center of biodiversity. So on July 6, 2017, the National Museum of the Philippines received reports of alleged trading of broken potteries and ceramic materials by the locals. So we proceed with our preliminary investigation of the site. So these are the people that we work with on 5 days field work. So these are the preliminary materials that we found, also or our surface finds, including ceramic sherds and stone materials or ballast stones. So what are the challenges? Again, money matters. Okay, so whether launching exhibitions, fieldwork, so money is #1 factor that we need to consider. And then personnel. So during the onset of the pandemic, we have limited number of staff that are allowed to come. So this has been our challenges. Implementation of policies, treasure hunting and illicit trade, and anti-collections are part of the challenges. So what are our plans? So our as a division, we have plans to do the Butuan fieldwork or Butuan boats, archaeology, management of World War II shipwrecks, and Katanawan fieldwork. Also for personal development, As part of the Maritime and Underwater Cultural Heritage Division, you need to be at least a diver or a scuba diver. So refresher course, it should be done at least every year as possible, because every dive, so our first dive is never the same with our second dive. So that's the reason why we need to have some sort of a refresher course every year. Also, we need to establish partnerships for museums and other archaeological research, including archaeological institutions, some national government agencies, and international research institutions. Also, some plans for increasing public awareness programs, possibly same with the Maritime Monday posters and other publications or applicable to raise this awareness to the public. And then we have to engage our stakeholders, our viewers, our partners, and other collaborators, and strict implementation of our policies. So that would be all for this morning. If you have questions, you may have your questions. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Sir Nero, for updating us with your division's public programs and engagements. We also hope to hear more of your division's future engagements or future activities. So this is also a proof that despite the changes our world has experienced in the last years, the NMP has managed to stand still and bring positive change in the communities. And now let us proceed with the open forum. So may we encourage our participants to type your questions. To our Zoom participants, you may click the Q&A feature found in the lower portion of your screen. And to our FB participants, you may type it in the comment section. And we also encourage the participation of our on-site participants. You may utilize the microphone provided po. May I request our speakers to be ready for the open forum. Okay, so to start with, can I ask questions to our first two speakers, Ms. Hani Beso and Ms. Malot? This just a personal question lang po. Can you share with us po, how was the experience or what was your personal takeaways during your training in Vientiane, Laos, so together with the other professionals? Do you have any exchanges of ideas during the training? So how was it po?
Oo, kasi syempre, halos 1 month yun, talagang may exchange of ideas talaga. Hindi naman po pwedeng hindi kami makipag-interact sa kanila. Talaga, at saka marami talagang mga group activities na for every session, they make you do group work. So, and, one month kasi yon, so parang hindi ko na maalala kung yung mga takeaways doon dahil sobrang dami. Essentially, yung lecture namin ngayon na binigay, yung presentation namin, form part of our takeaways. Kasi ako, coming from a non-heritage industry prior to the National Museum, basically I joined NMP na with zero background in museum management, museum work. So maraming revelations doon for me. Yung mga material knowing the material properties of objects was new to me at that time. And then yung syempre yung agent of deterioration, bago yun sa akin, bago ko pumunta doon. Although bago kami nag-call Asia ni Malot, ini-engage naman kami ng curatorial pagka nandito sila. So marami naman kami natututunan sa kanila. Like for example, when they set up exhibitions in the region, for instance kami, yung Habol Panay, malaki yung training na ibibigay nila sa amin. Marami kaming natututunan sa kanila. Marami kaming natutunan sa kanila. Kaya lang, syempre, hindi pa rin yun enough to really give us a complete view of museum work. So, yung Call Asia somehow managed to bridge the gaps or yung mga feeling namin na hindi pa namin nalalaman. Although, syempre, kasi in museum naman, yung learning is continuous. So, madami pa rin kailangang matutunan. But ako personally, yung conservation, yun yung bagong learnings for me nung nasa Call Asia ako.
Katulad ng sabi ni Hani, no? Well, ako kasi meron akong anthro background. So somehow, pumunta naman ako sa Call Asia ng training ng merong, lalo na doon sa yung knowledge ko sa intangible cultural heritage. But then, yung part na yung sa conservation, yung mga technical aspects, hindi talaga, meron tayong alam, kaya lang hindi ganun ka-organize. So, the Call Asia training yung doon sa pag-stay doon ng 3 weeks. As in, nakatulong yun para i-organize talaga yung experiences natin dito. So, and of course, nandun yung pag-stress halimbawa dun sa conservation na dagdagan siya. Dati, even before I went to the Call Asia training, actually may mga tips naman ako na natatanggap sa ethnology division. Lagi naman ako nagre-refer sa mga kaibigan sa ethnology division, no. Pero katulad nga ng, syempre, sa tingin ko lang, sa bawat panahon kasi dahil doon sa pagbabago ng technology natin, yung may mga bagong kaalaman, kaya kailangan i-update natin yung ating mga nalalaman or yung ating mga ginagawa doon sa museum dahil merong mga bagong pamamaraan para lalo dun sa conservation. Yun, sana yung ang wish ko lang sana magkaroon ng yung tipong ang mga kasama namin, lalo na sa regional area and site museums, wala talaga kaming curators, no, sa regional area and site museums. Pero sana yung mga ganitong bagay, lalo na yung ating conservation collections ay mas seryosohin natin at saka mas yung tipong ipatupad. Yun lang po. Thank you.
Ani, siguro isa rin yung masasabi ko na not so much an experience but an advantage of undergoing through Call Asia, and many alumni can attest to this, yung network na mabibuild mo with other institutions, medyo long term na yun kasi, at saka yung mga opportunities pa that will open to you kasi marami sila mga projects na they don't really offer to non-alumni. Kailangan nire-require nila na makapag go through ka muna ng training sa kanila or yung alumni yata nila kasi may mga projects sila last year na in-applyan namin na nililimit lang nila yung participation dun sa mga alumni nila. So alam nyo guys, parang ang pagkakaintindi ko naman dito sa Call Asia ay naka-open lang, nasa website nga nila So anybody can really apply. So if you're able to, please take advantage of the opportunity kasi lalo na yung mga walang prior training sa museum bago sumama sa NMP or sa any museum, very beneficial ito.
Okay, so thank you very much, Ms. Hani and Ma'am Malot, for that experiences. So this is also an encouragement to our participants, to those who are for those who want to join this kind of training, so you may search them online, available naman po. So we have a question from our Zoom participant. Anonymous na lang po daw ito. So the question is for Miss Malot or Miss Hani. So we've discussed resilience regarding our collections and actual management despite the pandemic. How are we naman po when it comes to resilience regarding human resources? Thank you. Miss Hani, Mamalat, do you get the questions po?
Oo, I think yung inaano ay well, hindi lang, I'm assuming na hindi lang ito mental health, di ba? So, ano yung psychosocial state ba ng museum workers? Is that what you're asking? Tama ba? Because of the pandemic?
Resilience daw po toward human resources.
Anong ibig sabihin ng towards human resources? Yung context ng pagkakaintindi ko dun sa question. Teka lang. Since regarding collections actual management despite the pandemic, how are we naman po in when it comes to resilience human resources? May kinalaman ba ito sa pandemic, yung resilience human resources? Marami kasi, does this pertain to mental health, to psychosocial well-being, to turnover ng personnel? Ano bang ibig sabihin nun?
Ito daw po, to clarify, may stream pa rin po ba tayo ng mga tao na nagjo-join sa institution? Are we still able to train them properly?
Siguro, pagdating sa stream na nandito kasi po ako sa regional museum, so I would not really know the whole picture. This would be best answered by the human resource, HRMDO natin. So, yeah, kami kasi very limited lang po yung plantilla namin. At regional museum, may naka-allocate lang na plantilla. So, hanggat walang umaalis, walang maidadagdag. Sa amin po, may isa nang umalis sa amin last year, 2021. Pero hindi naman siya, I would not really say na pandemic related yun. More on personal yun and family concern kasi. So, kung yung tinatanong ba ay dahil sa pandemic, connected ba ito sa pandemic, yung turnover ng personnel, yun ba yung question? So yun, hindi ko po alam kung ano yung stream ng baka yung taga-central po yung makasagot.
Ayun. Siguro ako lang, ang pagkakaintindi ko kasi yung parang, okay, i-translate natin dito sa local situation, dito sa Ilocos Regional Museum. Ang totoo, kami rito kulang kami kung ilan ba yung dapat na mukhang 12 kami dapat na staff at yung 12 na yun sa tingin ko nga konti pa yun kumpara doon sa laki ng aming ng regional museum. So actually meron kaming dalawang museum buildings, yung isa, although yung isa ngayon ay under conservation, pero meron kaming pangatlo yung Magsingal Museum na nakasara since 2014. Ang totoo nun, kulang kami. Sa ngayon ay pipito lang yung staff. Kaya sa totoo lang, stressed kami dahil hindi namin yung kailangang staff, for example, na mga laga sa collection ay kulang. Pero hopefully, ay maayos ito ng ating HR na ma-complete naman yung staffing namin para mapangalagaan ng husto yung ating collections. Dahil hindi lang to usapin ng ng pagkakaroon ng staff, kundi yung kasing kailangan natin na yung staff complement na tinatawag. Meron, pagka hindi kasi na kumpleto ito, meron siyang implications doon sa pag-fulfill natin ng ating responsibility sa pangangalaga ng heritage collection. So it really matters. And I think marami naman na yung tipong kailangan lang maging mas sigasig sa tingin ko doon sa recruitment para makuha natin yung staff na kailangan natin. And pagdating doon sa training, I think that we have lalo na yung sa RA 11333 kasi expected naman na kumbaga mapataas natin yung capacity ng regional area and site museums kasi hindi pwede na galing sa curatorial division sa Manila lahat na doon lang ang inaasa natin para sa ating collections nationwide. So I think kung maayos lang natin, kayang-kaya naman na mag-train, meron namang expertise ang National Museum para mag-transfer ng kaalaman tungkol sa conservation sa collection, tungkol sa research. It's just that siguro very important din ay makapag-hire ng mga tamang tao para to do the job. Okay. Yun lang po. Thank you.
Ani, dagdag lang. I think tinatanong din niya how it is now. Pero although yun nga, may mga limitations tayo kasi syempre hindi tayo basta-basta nakakapag face-to-face for a long time. Ewan ko kung ngayong year magbabago ba yun. But there has been efforts talaga, or rather there have been efforts by the National Museum to fill that gap yung pagdating sa kasi ang tanong niya ay are we still able to train them properly? Siguro may things could have been better kung wala yung pandemic, but and syempre may budget tayo, may enough budget tayo. But ang sa akin kasi may ginagawa rin talaga yung institution natin to really train yung mga tao, internal at saka even yung outside, yung mga stakeholders natin. Meron. So kung gusto talaga natin, we can attend and learn from these trainings. Probably not enough kasi syempre mas marami pa dapat tayong matutunan, dapat mas holistic din, but at least meron talagang mga efforts to do that, and siguro kailangan lang talaga nating i-improve pa with the coming years, hopefully after ng pandemic, and meron enough or sufficient na budget for it.
Okay, so thank you, Miss Honey and Mamalot. Yes, I agree. Our institution naman has efforts to address this kind of concern, and we also have continuing education and personality development naman na ginagawa ng ating institution to further cope up sa need ng collections and actual mga management. And also some of our staffs are being sent to the different conferences, trainings abroad, maybe locally meron din po, whether virtual or physical, yan, to cope up these concerns. Okay, so how about po in our on-site? So we have a question from sir, you may state your name before asking the question.
Greetings. I'm John Denver Napay, and this question is for the National Museum itself. What are the next steps of the National Museum of the Philippines when it comes to the digitization of their collections and the museum experience itself? Are they open for any suggestions? If so, who are the assigned persons to talk with? Thank you po.
Hello, good morning. Sir, thank you for that question. I'm not so sure if I'm the right person to answer a question, okay? But with regards to digitization of the collections of the National Museum, I think we're doing our best to, well, for example, in our case, MACHD or Maritime and Underwater Cultural Heritage Division, we are improving and maintaining our database. So say, for example, if you're doing research, so you can always send us requests to do research based on what we have in our database collections or our collections in our database. So some other references were also digitized and we're included in our database. And also, I think the National Museum also are doing the database for the whole agency or the institution. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Nero, for answering. Are you fine with the answer, sir? Or do you have any additional?
What are the next steps po of the National Museum of the Philippines when it comes to digitization po? Not the current, but that na, ano po, not the current thing na ginagawa ng National Museum sa ngayon when it comes to digitization, and who are the persons to contact with when it comes to the suggestions?
To our speakers, how about Mamalot and Miss Honey? Can we address the question or
Annie?
yes, ma'am?
Well, hindi I don't think I can answer that question kasi siguro nasa management level ito, and yung hindi kami masyadong familiar ano yung level of digitization natin dyan sa Central. Dito sa Regional Museum, definitely, wala pa tayo. Although may mga individual efforts sa mga kanya-kanyang branch to digitize the collection by taking as much photos as possible and putting it into archives. Pero iba kasi tinatanong ni Sir, it's the new digital technology talaga na siguro 3D yung sinasabi niya na kailangan, pwede mong i-view yung collection natin na naka 3D sa website or somewhere. So definitely sa region, wala sa ganong level yung sa amin, pero I cannot answer for the central office. So baka merong makasagot dyan sa inyo. Thank you.
So, sir?
Yung second question po, which is yung, are they open for any suggestions or negotiations? If so, who are the assigned persons to talk with po?
Are we open to negotiations? For ano, sir?
Suggestions and negotiation po. More likely suggestions.
Sir, I would suggest po na you contact Ma'am Rosette Valencia, and then perhaps na makakapag-usap po kayo and makakapag-advise po siya, or may maibibigay siyang sagot po sa inyo. She would know.
Salamat.
Okay, so we can park these questions po muna, sir. We will just get your information details po, sir, in order to address the question. We can ask po other curators or our museum researchers na nandito din po. So we can get back to you soon po. Okay, so thank you. So we also have another question from our participant in the FB. This is from Biel Rimoquillo. Wala siya. So, since museum practices are mostly learned through application, are there any opportunities for young people to try to get a peek into the practice to explore their interest towards the field?
Ako na yung sasagot, Malot, I'll answer for us. Yes, definitely, kasi yung National Museum, meron tayong OJT program. Again, I cannot talk much about the central office program, pero dito sa National Museum Western Visayas, we just concluded our pilot internship na online with local school here, and then with UP actually. So we are trying to design the program and yung curriculum na will give them the full experience as much as possible with enough guidance from the staff. So yung sa amin, dahil last year, so naka-lockdown, hindi rin sila pwedeng pumunta sa museum that time. So yung pinagawa lang talaga namin, puro online programs, developing social media content. Kasi kami din naman dito, yun din yung extent ng work namin last year. But we are pursuing that partnership with UP and with other schools para yung mga bata magkaroon sila ng hands-on experience with the museum. Kasi we're looking at it as an opportunity for us not only to engage to them and become museum champions or heritage champions themselves, pero baka rin mamulat sila sa mga, dito sa museum, yung mga fields of expertise din kasi parang hindi siya well known sa, yung mga usual na nalalaman ng mga kabataan. So hopefully, pag na-expose sila sa museum and the sciences na behind museum, who knows, di ba, merong gustong mag-archaeology, mag-pursue ng archaeology as a field, or paleontology or anything na related to us, di ba? Parang pinapalawak din natin yung awareness ng mga bata. So yeah, definitely kami dito, meron talagang efforts and active effort to partner with schools in that respect.
To add po, no, actually, tama nga, madaming programs naman ang National Museum para yung ating mga stakeholders, lalo na yung mga kabataan na makapag-participate sa, let's say, parang training about cultural heritage management. So, for example, yung hindi lang naman sa aming division, no? So other divisions have also different programs regarding that matters. Okay, so yung sa Maths Forum namin before, so nagkaroon kami ng parang workshop. So yung ating mga participants were able to experience firsthand yung halimbawa yung paano yung handling ng artifacts, kung paano siya i-restore, and then yung experience on how to yung sa scuba diving somehow. Although yun nga, dahil sa pandemic, so hindi pwede yung physical audiences. So siguro in the future, I think yung agents naman or yung HR, madami na nakalinya na mga programs for the public. So thank you.
And so thank you very much to our speakers for answering those questions. So do we have any questions? Yes, we have another question from our on-site participant.
Hello, I'm Annie. I have two questions, unrelated questions. Yung first, meron ba kayong ino-offer na trainings and workshops for collections management or museum practices catered for start pa lang ng museums or like agencies? And the other question is, meron ba kayong alam na software or apps to organize your database or digitizing and accessioning? So yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that question. Yung regarding doon sa mga trainings, no, sa collection management, nagkaroon kami dati actually, no, and then lately lang, although hindi siya from the agencies, hindi siya galing sa National Museum, so nag-attend kami ng parang isang archaeological management course sa Thailand. Online lang ito, no. So I think yun nga, we will take your question as part of your suggestion as well. Na in the future we can make that happen, so we can have some sort of trainings about collection management. With regards to your second question, digital application or software, no? So sa division namin, we're using FileMaker. So that's if you're familiar with that. Yun yung aming ginagamit. So we have one of our staff or one of our colleague is assigned primarily to maintain our database using the software. So I think madami ding available materials for kung paano siya gamitin or somehow. So so far yun yung pinaka best software for for digital collections or parang management of materials. Even mga references or other documents or pictures, so nagagamit po siya talaga. That's a lone software I know. Although hindi ako expert on that, we have personal. Thank you.
Okay. And also, ma'am, if you have request po, you may send a letter or a request to our email, the inquiry at nationalmuseum.gov.ph. So, ma-address po namin kung ano po yung request nila po. Okay, so are there more questions pa po? So far, if you have other questions na maalala niyo po, you may send those questions to education and training at nationalmuseum.gov.ph in order to be addressed. So far, wala na po tayong questions. Okay, so let's proceed po. So as I mentioned, since today is the International Museum Day, as a treat of the National Museum of the Philippines to our museum visitor or to those who wants to visit our central museums, starting today, our 3 buildings is open to the public from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So ayun, starting today, open na po kami from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So also right now, we have a simultaneous special guided tour, which started at 10 a.m. And we also have another one by 2 p.m. So led by the Central Museum Visitors Operations Division. And we also have new collection to be found at the National Museum of Natural History. So please come and visit us there. And of course, this was through the initiative of our Director General, Jeremy Barnes, and of course, our Deputy Director General for Museums, Mr. Jorel Ligaspi, who is with us this morning. And also we have Deputy Director General, Maria Rusen Avila. So before we end our program, may we request our participants to please accomplish the evaluation form given or the evaluation link found in the Zoom chat box in exchange of the certification or in exchange of the certificate of attendance. So in behalf of the National Museum of the Philippines, we would like to thank our speakers, Sir Nero, Ms. Hani, and Ma'am Malot, and of course, our sign language interpreters, Ms. Geng and Ms. Aisel, for joining us today. This is just the part 1 of our program, and we will be conducting the part 2 with another sets of speakers on July 13, 2022. So that's Wednesday po ulit on July 13. So we would like to invite you to join us again for another seminar on museum practices. Please follow our NMP website and social media service pages. So for details of our upcoming programs. So that ends our program this morning. Once again, this is Annie saying thank you and good morning, everyone.